The book I read was The Body by Stephen King. Set in the early 60s in the small town of Castle Rock, Maine, Gordy LaChance is a young teenager. The book follows him and his three friends on a life-changing 2-day adventure. Gordy has had a rough family life for about a year since his older brother Dennis, or Denny, was killed in a vehicle accident in the army. Gordy looked up to his brother, who treated him very well, but his parents are still shocked by their older son's death and haven't begun to recover. Gordy's father often chides his younger son about the friends he has, suggesting that they are slow-witted or feeble, especially Gordy's best friend, Chris Chambers. Chris comes from a broken family with an abusive alcoholic father, and where all the boys are expected to become criminals like his older brother Billy. The other two boys in the little gang of theirs are Teddy Duchamp and Vern Tessio. Teddy's ears were burned off by his dad, who was a vet with PTSD from World War II. And Vern comes from a pretty normal home, except for the fact that older brother is in the same gang as Billy. The events of the book start off with Vern running to the treehouse made of wood and scrap pieces of metal that they have found, with news that he had just overheard from his brother and his friend Charlie Hogan, while accidentally listening in on their conversation while looking for lost pennies underneath his porch. He came running into the treehouse and said, after taking a minute to catch his breath, "Do you want to see a dead body?" Ray Brower, a boy from Chamberlain, a town 40 miles or so east of Castle Rock, had gone missing a month before while going out to pick blueberries. The four friends decide that they will become famous if they find his body. They figure that Brower had lost his way along the railroad tracks and had been hit by a train. The boys make a plan to tell their parents they will be camping out behind Vern's house. They walk about 30 miles along the railroad tracks to find Brower's body. Before they all meet up at Vern's house, Chris and Gordy are walking over, and Chris shows Gordy a gun he stole from his dad. Gordy didn't like the idea of guns, but Chris reassured him by saying that it was empty. So he took it, pointed it at a nearby bottle, and pretended to shoot it, but was surprised when it actually went off. The two boys ran off and met with the other boys after Gordy yelled and punched Chris in the arm. The boys set out the morning after a long walk. They trespassed the town dump owned by Milo Pressman, who had a dog made out to be a mythical monster to fill their water bottles. Like the town of Macomb did with Boo Radley, the town of Castle Rock always says that this dog Chomper is a horrible beast. After seeing the average dog that they were so afraid of, the boys started to tease Chopper. After seeing this, Milo became enraged and stormed to the fence and started to comment on Teddy's nut job of dad. This made Teddy start to climb the fence, separating them, eventually being pulled back by the others. The boys then discover a high railroad trestle. Gordy and Vern think that they should find a different way around because they think that the train will come by and hit them, or if they try and dodge it and stand on the platforms beside the tracks, they will be flown off and fall to their death. But they are eventually convinced by the other two. While walking across, Gordy and Vern fell behind the other two boys, and making it to the middle, Gordy bent down to check if he could feel vibrations to make sure that a train wasn't coming by. But as soon as he touched the metal of the rails, he knew that the train was really close. He looked back and saw smoke coming above the trees. He stood up and yelled at the other boys that a train was coming, and they all started to run for their lives. Gordy was behind Vern, who fell and was too scared to get back up, after forcing him back up to the... By this point, the other two boys had already made it safely across the railroad trestle, and the train was on the tail of Gordy and Vern. They were about to be hit. So Gordy decided to tackle Vern off the tracks, and the two barely made it out as the train zoomed by. After finding a good resting place for the night, the boys made up the burgers that they bought earlier. While talking about a lot of different things before going to bed, Gordy told them a story he recently wrote about Lard-Ass Hogan, and him entering a pie eating contest to fulfill his revenge on the town who had been picking on him his entire life. Before the contest started, Hogan drank a full bottle of castor oil. After eating a lot of pie, he started to throw up everywhere, and seeing this, the rest of the contestants joined in and started to throw up all over the audience. His friends are really impressed at Gordy's talent to come up with stories, and Chris thinks that he's going to become a famous writer and get out of the small town, while he thinks that he will die in Castle Rock. This just shows, even though he doesn't like to admit it, Chris is really affected by how everyone treats him like he's a waste of space, including his teachers. When they finally find the spot where the body lies, a gang of bullies led by Ace Merrill arrive after they do. The rest of the gang is composed of Vern's older brother Billy, Charlie Hogan, Chris's older brother Richard Eyeball Chambers, Norman Fuzzy Browkowitz, Jackie Mudgett, and Vince Desgardens. And the two groups start to argue over who gets to turn the body over to the authorities. After Vern and Teddy got chased off by some of the other members of the gang, well, in a little skirmish with Ace, Chris gets put in a headlock and is almost stabbed by Ace when Gordy pulls out a gun and shoots it in the air. After a standoff, Ace lets go of Chris and leaves the boys. The boys take one last look at the body and leave. This scene in particular, is like the trial of Tom Robson and the loss of innocence for Scout. Because of the group of young teenagers sees a dead body and has their lives threatened all in the span of an hour. When they get back, they all go their separate ways. Vern and Teddy befriend young kids to rule over them, while as Gordy goes into college preparation courses, and to everyone's surprise, so did Chris, which gives them a theme of don't judge a book by its cover, because everyone thought that Chris would amount to nothing. Gordy became a writer and published a number of little articles in literary journals and men's magazines. His first novel became a bestseller and also became a successful film. He also went to Vietnam. Chris, who became an outstanding high school and college student and was in his second year of law school, was stabbed to death after trying to stop an argument in a fast food restaurant. Vern was killed at a fire at a house party, and Teddy died while in a car accident while under the influence. While as Ace, Gordy saw him once in the town after he had become successful. Ace became overweight and looked somewhat haggard, having shed his tough guy persona years before, which is pretty ironic considering the fact that he went from basically running the town to being a nobody.